What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am back with the quarterfinals of the GBA Season 8, where your Kansas City Jirachiefs are taking on El Cesar, Lars, and his Borussia Donphan in our third matchup of the season. Make sure to go check out Lars' channel if you haven't already. Also, make sure to check out his side of the video as well, as let me tell you, this game is a very, very close one. So, let's talk a little bit about the team preview here, as my opponent Lars decided to bring the Tornadus, the Delphox, the Cobalion, the Kirin Black, the Mesprit, and the Tapu Fini. A very similar team to what he brought in our Week 11 matchup, with the only exception being the Mesprit instead of the Mega Manectric, which I thought was a very interesting change. The team that I'm bringing this week, make sure to go check out the team builder if you haven't seen that already. If you want to see all the specifics of the team, going to be linked down on the first line of the description below as usual. The team I am bringing, just very briefly as a summary, is an anti-lead Seismitoad with an Aguav Berry to basically counter-lead his Tapu Fini lead that he's tried to bring the past two matchups. It's a Stealth Rocker, it has Knockoff, Earthquake, and Low Kick. Then I'm packing a Trick Room, Pixie Plate Gardevoir, the primary win condition in this game. You can see there's a lot of setup fodder for a Trick Room on his team, and if you look at his fairy resists on his team that he brought here, the only one is that Delphox, so all I really need is to chip down that Delphox for this to be a massive threat against him in the late game. I have an Assault Vest Breloom that can take any one hit from the majority of his team, excluding, in some cases, Life Orbs and Choice Specs, and I guess Choice Bands and whatnot too if he decides to bring that, but regardless, it could take at least one hit from most of his team and can just put a lot of pressure on him from an offensive standpoint. Then I have the Hydreigon, which is Choice Scarf. It's very similar set to what I've brought in previous weeks. I have the Celesteela, which is a standard OU type of Celesteela set with Leech Seed, Protect, Heavy Slam, and Earthquake, but the investment on that Celesteela is a little bit more offensive, with some bulk and defensive investment as well, but offensive investment to hit him as hard as possible with my Earthquake and my Heavy Slams. And then I have the Aerodactyl, which is a second Stealth Rocker in this matchup. Seismitoad's a Rocker, Aerodactyl is a Stealth Rocker. Then I'm packing the Pursuit for the Delphox and potential Gengar, the Earthquake, and the Stone Edge, because those are two very good and spammable moves against his team. So just looking at a glance at team preview here, I like what I see. The Mesprit has caught me a little bit off guard in the sense that I didn't think it was as valuable in this matchup as something like that Mega Manectric would be, or even something like the Gengar. I felt like both of those two mons were a little bit better against my team overall, but I guess he wanted to mix it up a little bit here in the playoffs, which is fair enough. As far as expectations from his team, I'm expecting the Tornadus to be a Tailwind set. I think that's very, very likely. I think he probably has to bring Tailwind, honestly, if he wants to have a reliable way to beat my option of multiple Choice Scarf users against this team. I'm expecting the Delphox to probably be that Assault Vest set again. That makes a lot of sense because it was really effective against me in the previous matchup, but he also could easily be Scarfed, he could easily be Calm Mind or Z-Move. There's a lot of options that the Delphox could be, and I need to try to scout him out, scout some damage on him to see if I can figure out what his set is. The Cobalion could easily, very likely be a Rocker, although I think Scarfed Cobalion is incredible against me just in general, so I think it's likely that could be a Scarf Cobalion and a Rocks Mesprit. I think that might be something he does, since he brought Scarf Cobalion last time and was never actually able to click Rocks, since Scarf Rocks is sometimes kind of hard to execute. Yeah, so that's, yeah, and the Kirin Black, you know, it's just going to be a breaker of some sort. That's just what Kirin Black does. Mesprit, Calm Mind, or Stealth Rock, and the Tapu Fini, I'm expecting the same old standard Moonblast Surf, Nature's Madness, and the Defog on that. So in terms of the lead matchup, I'm going to lead with my anti-lead Seismitoad, and we will just see what he decides to lead with here, as he has a variety of good lead options. I'm expecting him to want to lead with that Tapu Fini or the Kirin Black. I feel like those are the two best leads against my team, as he actually decides to lead off with his Tornadus instead, as I lead off with my Seismitoad. So right away, I'm in kind of an interesting position because I don't want to just take a Life Orb Grass Knot on turn 1. I don't think he's going to have Grass Knot, but I don't want to necessarily risk that when I can still switch this thing in very easily into the Tapu Fini at a later point in the game. So I'm going to go hard into my Aerodactyl right away as he just fires off a U-turn, and that's not great for me. So he's going to be able to get some nice momentum here on turn 1, going straight into his Tapu Fini on the Aerodactyl. But hey, that just means I get to go straight back into into my Seismitoad on this once again and basically execute the same game plan that I wanted to execute on turn 1 regardless. Only difference is now it's going to happen on turn 3. So that's fair enough, as he does decide to go for the Surf on my switch out, which was an interesting play. I definitely expected him to go for a Nature's Madness instead, and it turns out that he actually is packing the Grass Knot on this Tapu Fini, but in the long run, that's actually okay, I feel, because I'm still just going to go for the knockoff here. I do have 2 Stealth Rockers on this team. I'm not going to be able to get up Stealth Rocks on this Tapu Fini right now, but that's honestly not the worst thing in the world. Getting rid of the leftovers on Tapu Fini is really important for a lot of members on my team, as every little bit of chip damage I get off on the Tapu Fini just means it's going to be quicker and quicker into range of my Gardevoir in the late games. I do pull the switch into my Celesteela, which did have a fair amount of special defense investment to be able to take any hit from this, as he makes a really nice play and goes for the Nature's Madness, expecting me to switch out my Seismitoad. Now here I'm going to go straight for the Leech Seed, because honestly I have no reason to go for anything else. The Tapu Fini is not going to be able to KO me. The worst case scenario in this position is him going for a taunt, I guess, with this Tapu Fini, but he's not going to risk taking the potential heavy slam damage. So he does just go hard into his Cobalion here to get up his Stealth Rock, as I am able to fire off the Leech Seed and land on the incoming Cobalion. Now here I contemplated going for maybe a double Leech Seed, thinking he might want to try to switch out, go into something else on his team to try to deal with me without a Leech Seed on him, but I figured it's very likely he would just put up his Stealth Rocks right now if he had it, so I went for the more obvious play in the Earthquake, and because I am heavily attack invested in Adamant Nature, or at least decently attack invested with an Adamant Nature, the Earthquake is going to be able to do a good chunk of damage to the Cobalion, and in conjunction with the 2 rounds of Leech Seed damage, it is easily in range of a second Earthquake. It is easily in range of my Gardevoir in the late game, easily in range of my Breloom's Mach Punch. So this thing is no longer going to be a massive threat against my team, even if it is a Choice Scarfed Cobalion with the Stealth Rock. It's going to be less of an issue now in the late game, as here I expect him to either switch out, or even if he decides to stay in, I felt like Heavy Slam was my best play, since I'd be able to get off that damage on Cobalion and then just protect on the last turn to knock it out with the Leech Seed if I needed to. But I do hit the Mesprit coming in, which is really nice. All I have to do against this thing is now get up a Leech Seed on it, and then I'll be able to knock the thing out with 2 more Heavy Slams and have my Celesteela alive in the late game. Even if with this being a calm mindset, that's not too big of a deal. As long as I hit this Leech Seed, this thing would have been able to be easily 1v1'd by my Celesteela, but now because I missed the Leech Seed, what this means is now I do not 1v1 this Mesprit, and I am somewhat forced to leave my Celesteela in here to get this thing whittled, because I can't allow him to have a healthy +1/+1 Meloetta against the specific team that I brought. I don't really have amazing offensive checks to a +1/+1 Meloetta. I need to be able to wear it down defensively, and that's where that Leech Seed was really important here. And yeah, so what you're going to see here is he's going to fire off a second Thunderbolt, and that's not even going to take me out. So if I just had the Leech Seed on him, then very clearly I would have been able to take this second Thunderbolt with relative ease, and it would have been able to knock out the Mesprit here on this turn, as, you know, he just lives on a sliver here. That would have easily gone down after a couple rounds of Leech Seed damage, even after just 1. So that's pretty unfortunate there for sure. The Mesprit's going to be able to stick around for a little bit longer in this game as a sack, and because of the nature of a matchup against an offensive team like Lars's, every single sack is important, and even keeping my Celesteela around at a low amount of health could have been really useful later on in the game, as now I'm going to go straight into my Hydreigon just to try to pick him off with a U-turn, and if he wants to go into his Tapu Fini, get a little more chip damage off on that, and I might be able to whittle it down with other members of my team, as I do just fire off that U-turn as he decides to preserve his Mesprit and go straight into his Tornadus Eye, which is a good play considering it does resist the U-turn, although I found that to be kind of a risky play as well, as I easily could have just gone for a Dark Pulse, but U-turn was definitely my best play when he has a Tapu Fini in the back. As now I'm going to go straight into my Aerodactyl. Unfortunately, this means I have to take a round of Stealth Rock damage, which was probably his overall goal here with that sequence of plays, or with that play, as now I'm just going to take this as my opportunity to get up my rocks, since I wasn't able to do that with the Seismitoad. I know how valuable rocks are in the late game, and I know that if he decides to try to sack off his Cobalion, then I have a good chance of being able to take the close combat with the Earthquake if he is Choice Scarfed, and if he decides to go into his Tapu Fini, I'll be able to get chip damage off on that, or maybe switch out into something else on my team to get chip damage off on it at that point. So because he goes into his Mesprit, he looks like he's probably in range of my Pursuits, even if he is a heavily defense-invested Mesprit, and it looks like I missed out on a roll there. I'm not sure exactly what the roll was. I'll need to see what HP he was at from looking at his side of the battle, but at a glance, that looked to be a very low roll, so that's pretty unfortunate as well. As I'm going to knock out the Mesprit, but because I missed the Leech Seed, I'm going to actually lose most of my Aerodactyl as well to this Mesprit, so that's pretty unlucky there. As now he's going to go into his Tapu Fini to try to check me, but I'm just going to take this as an opportunity now, because my Aerodactyl is dead on rocks, to get off some chip damage on this Tapu Fini, as I need a little more chip on it to make sure it's in range of my Gardevoir's Moonblast. That's exactly what I go for, as he decides to go for a Grass Knot and knocks out my Aerodactyl. So I've lost a couple Mons here early in the game, but I do have his Mesprit gone, I have his Tapu Fini weakened. I'm still in an okay position. There's still a decent chance that I'm going to be able to pull this out in the late game, but it hasn't exactly gone ideally, obviously, at this stage, as I'm going to go into my Gardevoir to basically bluff the Choice Scarf on this, thinking I might be able to force him to switch out into his Delphox. That could be really good, but at this stage, because I have the Stealth Rock on the field and because the position I am in, I do just need to go straight for the Trick Room instead of going straight for the Moonblast, and even so, by going straight for the Trick Room, it'll allow some of the slower members of my team to become more of a threat against him now and be able to put me back into an advantageous position, as he decides to go for a Defog, which was actually really nice for me, considering he probably thinks he just got rid of my only Stealth Rocker, but no, I have another Stealth Rocker in the back, so now it's going to be hard for him, I think, to get Stealth Rocks up with his Cobalion again. And I can get mine up at some point as well. In fact, right here, as he goes into his Kieran Black to try to check my Gardevoir under the Trick Room, which I thought to be a very interesting play. It tells me that he is probably Roselli Berry on his Kieran Black. I think that's very likely. So I'm just going to go straight into my Seismitoad, expecting him to have Iron Head, because if he is a Roselli Berry Kieran Black, he almost definitely has a way to immediately revenge the Gardevoir that gets lured in. So I do take that Iron Head very well. It activates my Berry, and right away I'm able to get up those Stealth Rocks against this Kieran Black, which is so important for the late game, trying to win with my Gardevoir. All I really need at this point to be able to win with Gardevoir straight up is a little bit of chip damage on that Delphox. That's all I need. I also need a little chip damage on this Kieran Black, or to just get rid of this Roselli Berry, and he actually ended up being an Assault Vest. So either way, I would have been able to take a Moonblast, I believe, from my Gardevoir, so it's very good to be able to get rid of that, that item here, as now the Gardevoir is going to be able to do a ton of work against this team. Again, with just a little bit of chip damage against the Delphox. So here, going to my Breloom, knowing that I can take any one hit because of my very bulky investment. So I just go straight for the Drain Punch. I guess he decides that it's more in his interest to sack off the Cobalion instead of trying to sack off the Kieran Black. So I'm able to get rid of the Cobalion without taking any damage on my Breloom. So that's pretty good. It's also possible that he is expecting my Breloom to be Choice Scarfed at this stage. So that might be why he's playing around this the way that he is, as he decides to go into his Tornadus, and this is going to be my opportunity to go straight into my Hydreigon, as I know I can take any one hit from this and get a big chunk of damage off on this. Basically putting it in range of my Breloom's Mach Punch is the idea here with this next play, as he does just go for the Heat Wave, just trying to take out my Breloom, not knowing that that's no way that's going to be able to take out my my Breloom here due to my Assault Vest set, as he reveals to have a Berry of his own. Now, I thought about going for a Draco Meteor on that turn because it would have guaranteed taken out the Tornadus, but I didn't want to give a Calm Mind Delphox an opportunity to set up in my face. That was a big thing I was kind of fearing at this stage, since he was holding it kind of close to his chest like a potential win condition in the late game. I didn't want to give him that free opportunity to set that up, or even like Z Sunny Day. That was also something I was kind of concerned about, so I didn't want to lock into Draco Meteor, even though that would have been able to take out the Torn here. What he's able to do is he's able to get a bunch of health back, hit his Hurricane, and then go for a U-turn, knocking out my Hydreigon and go straight into his Kieran Black. And regardless of what this thing is, now that I know that it is Assault Vest, the only way this thing can knock out my Breloom in one hit is with an Adamant Outrage. There's no other move that he could possibly click that would knock me out in one hit without a critical hit. So I'm going to go into my Breloom. He's going to click Zen Headbutt, and I'm going to dodge the Zen Headbutt, which is fantastic, because now I'm going to be able to Drain Punch the Kieran Black. I'm going to be able to knock that out, and now my Breloom is in a very good position to win. The way that he wins this game now is if he is a Specs or Life Orb Delphox, or if he has a Z move right here, because I know my investment allows me to take a Fire Blast from this Delphox from full health. So I'm going to go into my Gardevoir here just in case he is an Assault Vest Delphox. So if he's an Assault Vest Delphox, I need to go into my Gardevoir here because that allows me to, one, take 2 Fire Blasts. It allows me to, that's assuming that he's like similar Delphox to what he brought last time. It allows me to set up a Trick Room as well, and if I set up the Trick Room, then the Gardevoir is going to be, or the Delphox will be guaranteed in range of my Breloom's, Rock Tomb, and if it's just an offensive Delphox anyways, then it was still my best play to at least try to set up the Trick Room just in case he gets like a critical hit with his Fire Blast. And as you can see, he actually misses the Fire Blast as well. So what that means is the Rock Tomb is going to connect, Breloom is going to be able to clean up the remainder of the game, and, or I guess Torn goes down to rocks, and the KC Jirachiefs are going to advance to the semifinals of the GBA Season 8. Now let me talk a little bit about the hacks there at the end, okay? Just want to make sure it's clear. I don't want people trying to crucify me because of dodging his headbutt, dodging a Fire Blast. How it all turns out, if you look at the math, Lars had a 60% chance of winning that game. If you account for the fact that he had to hit the Zen Headbutt with his Kieran Black, he had to hit all 3 Fire Blasts with his Delphox. If you think about that endgame scenario, he had to hit Gardevoir twice with Fire Blast, he had to hit Fire Blast against the Breloom, and he had to hit the Zen Headbutt with the Kieran Black to be able to sweep the entire remainder of my team in the late game. That is a 55% chance, 60% chance if you also account for the possibility of me missing my Rock Tomb. So he had about a 60% chance of winning that game there at the end. Obviously, he came up short in that regard, and with how that played out in the late game, I apologize for that. It's never cool to see a game come down to odds and luck, basically. But that is Mons, that's the game we play. If you ask me, my argument is that in the mid-game sequence with the Leech Seed miss did have a pretty severe impact on how I could play out the end game. It limited my options, it removed a sack from me, which is really important when you're playing against an offensive team like Lars's, and I happen to believe if I had that extra sack intact, I had a much stronger chance in the late game. I'm never going to say guaranteed win, that's just not fair to Lars as a player, as he is a very strong player, obviously in the top half of the league this season. So I'm not going to make that type of statement, but what I am saying is that the Leech Seed miss mattered a lot in the mid game, and the fact that Breloom was able to clutch it out here in the end, I think makes up for that to an extent. Obviously, it's not exactly comparable, but you know what I mean. So really happy with how that ended for sure. Being able to clutch it out, Breloom, your sins are forgiven, my friend. From those of you who don't know my backstory, alright, so I don't have a championship, okay? I don't have a championship in League format. I should have one, but way back in the NPL, where I've played the most in my draft league career, I lost the championship game because Breloom decides to get 2 Bullet Seed hits followed by a Min Roll Mach Punch against a Reuniclus in a situation where it would have been a win if I didn't have that exact sequence of rolls occur. Okay, and the whole percentage of that was very low. It was like below 2% chance. And this game really was Breloom, I guess, trying to show me that he means business and he's sorry for what happened in the past. So really happy about that for sure. But once again, I don't think I mentioned this yet, great game to Lars. I thought he played very well. Obviously, it came down to the absolute wire there at the end, basically a 60-40 chance to see who would win there in the late game. Fortunately, we were able to come out on top. So yeah, so we're moving on to the semifinals. I don't know my opponent yet. Make sure to check out the game between Geo and Envy to see who our opponent will be, who we will face in the conference championship of the GBA, the overall semifinals for the right to play in the GBA finals for Season 8. So be looking forward to that. I know I'm excited to see how that match goes down as well. But I will see you all next week in the semi-finals. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.